Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rachelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello and welcome to episode 88 of How to Live Slow. This is the fourth in a series of episodes called Mental Load May. I hope you are really well and thank you for joining me today. So this is the fourth episode in what I intended to be just a 4-episode series on how to share the mental load, or you may know the mental load as emotional labor or the overwhelm of motherhood, just that running to-do list in your mind of everything that you have to think about, do, plan, foresee, expect, remember, all of those things. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if this is the first episode in the series that you're listening to, I really recommend that you go right back to episode 85 was the first episode in the series, where I kind of talked a little bit more about what the mental load is and how to create a not to-do list. And then we also talked about in episode 86, the inner work of motherhood, it's a really deep episode. I found that what I've been doing has each episode, I've just got kind of like a rough outline of what I want to say, and then I just chit chat and share what ends up coming out. And I have a little story that I like to start with to kind of illustrate what my point is. And then we go into the episodes. I found that I've been sharing almost to the point of oversharing, but actually, do you know what? I'm embracing who I am, and that is part of who I am. I'm not great at small talk. I go straight into the deep mode of conversation. So that's what you're getting in these episodes. But if I tried to be someone that I wasn't, then the right people listening to this wouldn't connect with it. And I really hope that these episodes are really helpful to you. These episodes are specifically, they're for all mothers, but they're specifically for mothers who identify as the flexible parent, which is often most mums. And the flexible parent is the one who has, either not returned to work or returned to work part-time, or is the one who's always, flexible for their partner's career, if they have one, more available for the needs of the family. And also, usually the one who's doing a lot of the domestic load and the mental load of running the family and keeping everyone's schedules on, getting everyone to where they need to be and foreseeing all circumstances and all the housework and all of that as well. Now, even if you have a 50-50 split with housework, it often falls to someone who remembers what needs to be done. And, and I guess you've probably, if you're not new here, if you would have heard me talking about the Martyr to Matriarch method, which is kind of my process which is basically what I've been sharing in these 4 episodes, my process of stepping into the leadership role, into your own matriarchy. And I dive really deeply into that in the previous episode to this one, episode 87, the power of becoming the matriarch of your family. And that means your nuclear family, like the people that live in your home. But often, and that's what I want to dive into today, often as women, we are raised to be quite passive in our lives, meaning that we're at the whim or at the mercy of what other people's decisions are. And that's where I want to go today. Today, I want to share with you a story of why words matter, and the words we use to describe our lives and to describe ourselves and our identities really matter. Now, I used to think of myself and self-described as an easygoing person. And I've stopped doing that. And here's why. Because what I've learned is that easygoing, and what I've realized that I was doing it for, is because being easygoing is a trait that's desirable by others for their benefit and comfort, particularly those with big personalities and big opinions. And if you look at it from a feminist patriarchy kind of situation, like from that lens, being easygoing is part of being a good girl, like not rocking the boat, not having too many strong opinions that might put other people out. And I very much identified with that because I guess I just didn't like to upset people. And I use this example of like I'm quite a gentle person. Like I feel like often I'm not very good at speaking up for my own needs. I'm getting better at, that's what I mean where I say like as a woman, I feel quite passive in my life and I'm trying to take a more active and decisive role in my life. I'm trying to step more into my power and more into my matriarchy. And yeah, so, you might think of the example of like, I don't mind what we have for dinner, but you kind of do mind because you don't say yes to any of the suggestions, but you don't want to be the one who makes the decision, or, you don't want to, make a decision and then other people don't want to have that or whatever. And so then you feel like, okay, well, I feel like I don't want to take up the space. I don't want to be the one making the decision. But what I realized is that when you always the one who, if you don't kind of make decisions, if you're not actively saying what you do and don't want, then you are at the mercy of what other people want. And it's not to say that other people are taking advantage of you, but it's just that when you don't share your ideas, your desires, your needs, then, and you don't take up space and you're not willing to, then you don't get the outcomes for your life that you want. When you're just kind of going with the flow or being easygoing, then that eventually builds up frustration. It eventually builds up resentment. You eventually end up realizing that you're living other people's lives. And here at How to Live Slow, I'm all about encouraging you to build better boundaries and to learn to say no and to speak up for what you do and don't want. And in last week's episode where we talked about the power of matriarchy, and I said it's this weird conundrum when you don't speak directly to what you do want, you end up by being passive, you end up getting what you're trying to avoid. So by not saying, just being direct with what you do or you don't want, then other people are going to make your decisions for you. And they're not necessarily doing it out of, being mean or anything. It's just that because, if you're easygoing, if you're going with the flow, then you're allowing other people to make your choices for you. And that doesn't always lead to the best outcomes for you. And I guess where we talked about last week as well, the points of tension in your life. And for me, this was another, like realizing that I felt like I was, I needed to do the inner work of working on being, I don't want to be easygoing. I don't need to go all the way to the extreme and being the opposite of easygoing and be like really opinionated and boisterous. I can find some middle ground where I can say, no, this is my boundary and this is what I have expectations of for my life. This is what I expect behavior-wise, or, how I can say yes or no to things, right? And I had to work really hard at learning how to do that. And because if I can't do that for myself, then how, and this is where the tension point came along, is that I had my kids, right? And it's very hard to advocate for your kids and their needs if you can't do that for yourself. So I realized that if I didn't start working on being more active and making more choices for my life, and I'm saying this in a very, overarching way, and I'm not giving many specific examples, but I'm sure you can think of situations in your life where it might be small things, but if you don't speak up about it, like it might be like, all right, meeting up for a play date with someone, something really easy and straightforward, but you would prefer to do it in the afternoon, or you'd prefer to do it at a meeting point halfway, or you'd actually just prefer to meet at someone's house, or even when you're there and you're like, all right, I really want to get going, but it doesn't feel like you can say that. But when you have kids, you do need to start, like, you can see my point here, right? If you want to advocate in big ways, or like, for example, when the kids start school and then there's conversations like, maybe your kids have a fight with another kid at school and you've got to have an awkward conversation with the parent or the school for that, or something like that's just probably, I don't know if that happens, but it hasn't happened for me yet, but I sort of feel like, well, how would I handle that conversation if I can't learn to be a little bit more direct in just basic conversations? Because I guess I've got that. I'm sure that if you're a sort of more gentle soul, a bit more passive, kind of like easy, if you've described yourself as easygoing, you might find it really tricky to have more direct conversations. They can feel a little bit more confrontational. And that's where I'm like, well, I need to stop just identifying as an easygoing person and I need to be a bit more assertive. And so that's part of the work. And that is part of what I'm saying here. If you want to take control of the mental load that you have, then one of those things is to be a bit more of an active player and decision maker in your life and not just describe yourself or identify with being an easygoing person. So it's really important to see yourself as a leader in your family. I really like the analogy of, people talk about, well, if you were juggling all of the things that you have to do and you're juggling, well, which ones can you not drop? Like which ones would break if you drop? And that's how you know what your priorities are. But I also think that leaves you, if you think of it from that analogy of juggling all of your priorities and you're trying to manage it all and catch as many as you can, that's still kind of letting other people decide what's important to you. I like to think of it more of like, okay, we want to bring back our energy. We want to be the leader. We want to be the magnetic leader. So rather than trying to keep balls in the air, I think about it as, okay, well, I'm going to open up my umbrella. And my umbrella is my capacity, my ability and capacity to do things and to keep up with things is whatever can fit under the umbrella with me. If it can't fit under the umbrella, then it's not something that I've got the time or capacity to manage or maintain. And you can invite the people and things inside under your umbrella that are important to you. So for me, ultimately, it's actually not about getting rid of the mental load or finding a way to manage all of the mental load. It's about figuring out your priorities of what's actually important and taking care of your own needs. And it kind of, if you invite your family in, this is another part of being the leader or the matriarch of your family, the co-parent of your family, is to invite your partner and your children into family life. And it's kind of like when you slow down and you've got a little bit more time in your diary because you're really clear on your priorities. You're really clear on your priorities. So this is kind of becoming, you can see it kind of goes in a cycle. So as you get clearer on your priorities, you start to do less. As you do less, you realize that it goes in a cycle and it goes around and around until eventually you get to a point where you actually are doing just the things that really matter to you. You've become, you're not just an easygoing, go with the flow girl anymore. You're taking more ownership over your own life, which means that you have more ability to say yes or no to the things that might be added extras. And eventually you get to a point where you've got the time to be the mother, be the leader of your family that you desire to be, which means that you've got more time to model contribution, to teach your kids more life skills, which takes time, to get them involved in the running of the home so that we're not continuing the cycle of teaching our girls that it's going to be all on them and teaching our boys that they can expect to not have to do anything and just focus on their careers. I'm being very binary there, but you can kind of know what I mean here, where we invite both our boys and our girls into understanding that we all have a contribution and we all have deserved time out as well. And so when you slow down, when you take time to really embody that matriarch, you've got the time to do those things. And you also, it kind of, when everybody is involved, and that's where I said, the power of hosting a family meeting once a week or even a nightly meeting, whatever, obviously take that idea and run with it however it works with you. Open the lines of communication directly within your family. And that kind of, I have heard the word, I think it was from the Tending letter. It's called tethering yourself to your family, tethering yourself to your life. When you see the mental load as the way that you care for your family in a beneficial way, where your needs are being met, so you're not feeling like you're martyred to having to do everything for the family, but that you're just the leader in that process, then it feels really soothing and nourishing. And it can feel like you're taking care of your family as in a really beautiful way. Like it feels good to take care of them because, we're all taking care of each other. I think that's just such a much more beautiful way of approaching it. And so it's the little things, like the words that we use, like I said at the start, that really describe our life. Words create worlds, as they say. So I really invite you to have a little look at some of these processes that I've talked about over the last 4 episodes. Now, I have absolutely loved chatting with everybody who has signed up for my 1-hour slow coaching sessions. There are still some places available and I'm going to be doing it ongoing. So it's not just going to be May because May is almost over. I will be continuing these 1-hour sessions. They're $60 for a 1-hour session or $60 for 60 minutes. It's just a 1-hour session with me where we can get to the heart of what's really causing you the most overwhelm so that you can take the first step in slowing down your motherhood journey and finding a way to enjoy, to create that dream family life, to find a better way of managing the mental load, to step into your power as a mother and to become the matriarch and, really start to change and shift your life in the direction that you want it to go. I would really love to chat with you. If that's of interest to you, please have a look at the link in the show notes for this episode, or head over to my website if it's howtoliveslow.com, and you can find all the info there. Of course, I do have longer packages as well. I'd like to start with a 1-hour session just to see if we're the right fit as well, and if you do want to go on with a longer term coaching package, they are available too. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I'd really love for you to share it with another mother. This series has been such an honor and a privilege to create, and I feel like it's only just starting. So next week, I've got a beautiful episode with Dr. Hilary Clare, and she's going to be talking with us about her amazing book, The Motherhood Reset. And then ongoing from that, we're going to be talking about some more ways to slow down your family life, to find the joy in motherhood again. So until we connect again, I hope you're really, really well. And don't forget to breathe, mama, because you have totally got this. Take care and speak soon. Bye. That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.